And good evening. Once again, this is Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my cohort and co-horse, David Kanyuk.
I like cohort, actually. I want that to be the new title.
Okay. Cohort and crime.
That's right.
So, again, let me give out the call numbers, just in case any of my friends or enemies would like to call with their questions or comments. You can call toll-free, 855-244-0077. And if you're locally in the Des Moines area, call 244-0077. So you said you had kind of a slow news week?
Well, in my time where I'm not watching the destruction of the American Republic and the encroaching of tyranny upon our fair land.
Well, that's like every day, isn't
I
it?
know. So when I'm not focusing on that, I like to, I still enjoy playing video games and everything. So I write reviews for a little website called nerdbacon.com. And this week was the Electronic Entertainment Expo, which is like the biggest convention of the year for the video game industry. So I was watching press conferences and things like that. I took a couple of days off of work and put on my gaming journalist hat and just was pumping out things that mean nothing to society. But
reportedly, you was in a sweet pepper pickling convention.
That's right. I was pickling some peppers on Saturday, and I was listening to an archive broadcast from a guy named Bradshaw. And this young, plucky fella called in for the duration of the show. His name was Frank Holzhauser, and they had a delightful discussion ranging from of a myriad of topics.
Well, the first words out of his mouth was, "Oh, let me get rid of this call."
Exactly. Yeah, that didn't work out too well for him.
And 70 minutes later, he says, "Wow, we've covered some ground."
No, that was a really fun show. I enjoyed listening. It was perfect. It was perfect pepper pickling companionship.
Well, now when I posted it onto your link, I was having some problems, a temporary problem of getting the page up. Did you have any problem linking up to it, or?
No, I got that to go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're all good.
Well, get started with the show this week, and we got a lot of topics to cover and a lot of info to cover, so I guess I would start with this. I was reading a 60 Minutes 2 report in 1999, and apparently Russia during that time was recruiting people to live during the 40s, between the 40s and the 60s. And why I didn't get that amended onto this, I'm not quite sure. But in a report in 1999, between the years of 1940 and 1960, Russia recruited people to live in at least 40 secret cities. They lived in the lap of luxury with the best clothes, food, and housing under top security, while most of the rest of the Soviet Union struggled to survive. Obviously, they had jobs, and that was producing plutonium. And I was reading that one facility 600 feet below a mountain in Siberia produced 40 tons, enough to build a nuclear bomb every 3 days. Now, much of this material is highly desired by terrorist organizations, and it just shows me how fragile the world is and a dangerous place it is. But while the atheists believe that it's just all a coincidence, Christians know that God has angels standing at the four corners of the earth holding back the winds of strife. And Ryan, would you put up Matthew 24:6 for me? And it brings me to these couple of texts I'm about to show you, where it talks, "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, and be not troubled, for these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet come." And then if you'd bring up 1 Thessalonians 5:3, and the 1 Thessalonians 5:3 says, "And this is what should worry all Christians. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. So I put a post on my Facebook today, actually, and I'll try to get that on my webpage, on my blog, and it talks about Pope Francis calls for peace during his Eastern blessing. So the time for Christians to get worried and get aware is not so much when war is going on, because that will happen till the end of days. But when the real storm and the real tornado will hit is when there's this universal call for peace and calm, and then Christians need to start worrying.
Well, it's coming, and I was going to tie that in. There are a couple of points that I wanted to hit. We already have Christians being persecuted right now heavily in the Middle East of what we're seeing in Iraq, Syria, et cetera, et cetera. They're being funded, or they're being completely persecuted by these jihadists that are being funded by the U.S. to topple the sectarian regimes over there. So, we've got that persecution that's going on. In the U.S., we haven't quite seen that level yet, but that will come at some point. But what you were saying about the 60 Minutes 2 report about Russians being recruited to live here in the U.S.
No, that was in Russia.
I'm sorry?
That was secret cities in Russia.
Secret cities in Russia.
Where they were being recruited Russian citizens were being recruited to live in secret cities in Russia, is what the report was saying.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about having them live in the U.S.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, then never mind on that. But they did actually have Russian people living in the U.S. undercover. That's what, I don't know if you've heard of this series on FX called The Americans.
Yes, I saw. I saw about half of the series.
I haven't seen any of the series. My dad's been watching that. He apparently he says it's really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what that series is about. It's about Russians living as U.S. citizens in the U.S. And things like that are still going on. And this is really the magic part of this show, is that we really don't have collaboration too much on what we're going to talk about. Frank doesn't know what I'm bringing. We talk midweek, just talk about what news is going on. But yeah, it made me think of this story that I had printed out today about an ISU student right up in Ames. He was arrested because he was trying to order a secret military part to send it back to China. Yeah, this dude. Let's see. A search warrant was served on the ISU campus last year to gather information from the college's computers about the alleged smuggling operation. He's been accused of being a spy and using the college to help funnel military secrets to China. Let's see here. The search warrant is dated from December 30th of 2013 and outlines the case the federal government has built against ISU graduate student Wen Tong Kai. The warrant claims Wen Tong tried to buy about 20 ARS-14 military-grade sensors under the guise of needing them for research at Iowa State University, but really planned to illegally smuggle them to China. This is on WHO's website, Channel 13. So it goes to show you that type of thing is still going on right now.
Well, what you said is absolutely correct. To keep the spontaneous combustion ability, we try not to discuss too much what we're going to talk about. We have kind of an outline of what we want to discuss, and then we kind of independently research some things that pique our own curiosity and interest. And then we bring them to the table. But as long as we're talking about the pontiff, I would just like to mention some of my study and reading about the history of the Catholic Church. I would just warn my fellow Christians that are wanting to get a little bit more than friendly with the Pope, that the Pope is tolerant where the Pope is powerless. And don't make friends with don't be in too much of a hurry to make friends with the government of Catholicism. But I wanted to mention in some of my study and reading that this is why I can't never make friends with, and will never make friends with that government, is dignitaries of the Church of Rome studied under Satan, their master, to invent means to cause the greatest possible torture and not end the life of their victim. And in many cases, the infernal process was repeated to the utmost limits of human endurance until nature gave up the struggle and the sufferer hailed death as sweet release. So many Christians the history of Catholicism, the history of the church. And the church persecuted and put to death many Christians by the stake, by the rack, by the torture, by death in seclusion. They sat on science by imprisoning Galileo. They sat on Christianity by keeping the Bible out of the hands of most people. The Bible was only in the hands of church dignitaries. And so it's just another validation in my mind that a leopard can't change its spots.
Well, they've kind of treated the Christian church as what we've talked about, how black leaders like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson have treated the black community, just using them to prop up their own power and kind of keeping them down, so to speak. So
exactly,
and this Pope especially, I think, plays a heavy role to come, especially in end times events that will be coming up shortly.
Well, now to get to the meat of our show, and I think this will probably take up a good chunk of it. I write, boo-hoo. So Hillary Clinton hasn't 2 nickels to rub together. And if a trip around the world cost a dime, she couldn't walk out of sight. Wow. This same woman who, when her hubby, Bill, was governor of Arkansas in the mid-'70s, she was highly depressed that he only made $35,000 a year. Now, that's in the 1970s. But one thing she failed to mention is they had free housing, free transportation, free food, free chef, free utilities, free health care.
Free Willy.
And Free Willy. And plus the $35,000. But Chelsea didn't have a swimming pool. So I believe that I read somewhere that Arkansas put in a pool for the little youngster. Then when she ran for the Senate against Rick Lazio in a near gimme election, she raised and spent over $30 million in lavish parties. She outspent most all Senate races at the time, even the very contested ones. Oh, and then there's the land deals, the cattle ventures, the somewhere between $1,000 to $10,000 investment. I've heard it as low as $1,000. I've read $6,000. I've read $10,000. But she turned that into a mere $100,000 windfall. Not bad. She is just so poor. Well, I'll trade her poor. She'll probably want to trade back, but millions of dollars on book deals by both her and Bill. Their speeches garner them anywhere from $200,000 to $800,000 a pop. These paupers are closet millionaires, but they would have you believe they just have to make ends meet. Oh, the hypocrisy, these two, especially her, and are the most money and power hungry two on the face of this earth. Bill raising millions on the campaign trail. And it used to be, years ago, Congress would allow you to put into escrow all the money you raise for a campaign not spent and then take it out when you retire. Nothing has changed. If you're not a multimillionaire when you get in the Senate, you are by the time you leave, Harry Reid. Insider trading, land grabs are just normal operating procedure, but wah, 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 wah is Hillary's cry. She is just the working stiff like you and I.
To the insider trading part, they actually passed a bill saying that Congress can engage in insider trading. It's illegal for everybody else, but not for Congress.
Sure.
But yeah, Washington Examiner took a look at this, noting that since leaving office, according to financial records and news reports, both the Clintons have earned $155 million from speeches, salaries, and book deals. Now, maybe that's because those are all in $100 bills and not nickels. So she really doesn't have 2 nickels to rub together. She's got plenty of $100 bills, but not nickels.
Wads, yeah, she has plenty of wads of bills.
Oh, gross. Okay. Where's the doonch when you need it? All right, so what's more, through the kindness of friends and successful and richly funded Bill and Hillary and Chelsea Clinton Foundation, they've received travel and other benefits The foundation itself has assets of $257 million.
And we're on our first break, and this has been Frankly Speaking Live. I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and co-host David Kaniuk, and we'll be back shortly.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
Hey, what's wrong? Logan wants Let's Rock Elmo for his birthday, but since Steve lost his job, I don't think we can afford it. What did you do for money last year when you and John were struggling to make ends meet?
My secret? I went to Me and Mommy to Be. We sold all of Megan and Ryan's clothes and toys there. They give back the highest percentage on their items in the area, and it was so easy.
Megan's clothes? She's 15.
Yes, they can sign newborn through trendy teens. We're not struggling now, but I'm going to keep saving and making money at Me and Mommy to Be.
See 'em here, see 'em there. You got bad credit, we don't care.
Visit emetroford.com for your guaranteed credit approval. Good credit, bad credit, no credit. Everybody drives with guaranteed credit approval at emetroford.com. Visit emetroford.com today.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
And we're back with Frankly Speaking Live. I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my cohort and co-host, David Kaniuk.
I like that Ryan's in the booth spinning the smooth tunes today. Frankly speaking, the smoothest news you'll get all week.
That is true.
All right.
And of course, Ryan producing in the producer's room. I wanted to do a little housekeeping from last week because David and I stayed a little after the show last week and done a little research and found Ed Klein was the author that I referred to who interviewed Reverend Jeremiah Wright.
Yeah, he was the author of The Amateur.
Yes,
Yeah,
for
okay.
3 hours. And I wanted to, I couldn't remember the author's name last week, and I told any of my audience that remembers listening from last week that I'd get back to you this week. And so the research brought up Ed Klein, and if I posted, I believe, on my blog, on my website, and on my Facebook post, if anybody is interested in listening to the interview.
And that blog is?
FranklySpeakingLive.com.
There you go.
Just a couple of things. We're going to get into some other topics here, but I wanted to mention a couple of things, and you did mention one of them. Now, when you mentioned that they made $150 million, was that between the two of them?
That was between the two of them, correct.
Because I've got Bill making $100 million on his own in speaking fees.
Yeah, plus the foundation, the Bill and Hillary Clinton Foundation, has assets of $257 million. Hillary's going to get about $8 million from her new memoir, Hard Choices. And And let's see here. Bill Clinton himself, goes on to say he earned about $106 million in speeches through 2013.
Just to interrupt you there, I don't know if you ever listened to Greg Gutfeld on Red Eye, but he did mention that Hillary stole Monica Lewinsky's book title.
Nasty.
I thought that was kind of amusing.
And
but go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, the earning bonanza by Bill and Hillary doesn't stop there. Old Chelsea, she earned quite a good nickel. Now she did she was on that Rock Center show that was on for a quick minute on NBC as a Sun-Times correspondent. How much do you think that she earned being a Sun-Times correspondent?
Well, she's married to. Go ahead. I wouldn't even wager a guess.
$600,000. Politico reports Chelsea Clinton earned an annual salary of $600,000 at NBC News before switching to a month-to-month contract earlier this year. Clinton, who joined NBC News as a special correspondent in November 2011, was up for renewal or non-renewal this year. Instead, the sources said the network decided to keep her on the payroll on a month-to-month basis so the two parties could sever ties if Clinton's mother, Hillary Clinton, runs for president.
Well, do me a favor while I'm talking here a little bit. Google her husband. Google who she's married to and what he does for a living, because he's somebody that the Democrats are always railing against.
Really?
I hedge fund manager. He's a hedge fund manager that she's married to. So I know that hedge funds are something that the Democrats routinely rail against. But
Mark Mezvinsky. That's Mark Mezvinsky.
Okay. Well, this whole thing, this whole discussion on Hillary has basically brought me to a conclusion. And being that I've read a number of books in my lifetime, probably a dozen or so, that involve the impeachment hearings and books on Bill and Hillary, and many of the anecdotal stories that I've read, that I just come down to the fact that Hillary Clinton has a complex. And she has a complex of entitlement. And she has a strong allergy to truth. Every time she opens her mouth, it's prevarication. And there's even a stronger word for that, and it's called lie and liar. And when she was a child, there was a couple of famous instances in a couple of the books I read, and I'm not particularly. I want to say that she fibbed about something on the idea of what her father done for a living. And then I was just Googling this afternoon, that she, I think, fabricated a letter she wrote as a 12 or 13-year-old girl to the NASA.
Mm-hmm.
And supposedly she got a No Girls Allowed letter in return. Now, this letter is in great dispute because NASA has no record of it.
Mm-hmm.
And Hillary has no evidence to prove that she wrote this letter.
Just like the bullets that were supposedly flying at the plane that she was landing
Well,
in.
and that's exactly right. She was flying into Bosnia during all that issue back in the 90s. And she was claiming that she and the plane was taking fire.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've heard a number of other witnesses who were on the same flight said that was a complete fabrication.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this woman has been caught in so many fabrications, lies, prevarications, whatever you want to call it, whatever fibs, whatever kind word or unkind word you want to call it. The woman has a problem telling the truth. She's not to be believed. So I would just like to ask Hillary Clinton, and I know she's probably watching this show, well, what difference does it make? I don't know. If some bad thing should happen to Chelsea and some dastardly character would get away with doing her harm, I think somebody should say, well, what difference does it make? These 4 people that died in Benghazi, they all have family members. Sean Smith's mother says that both you and Barry Obama said you'd get back to her when you found out who was responsible for the death of her son. Sean Smith's mother says she's not got a call from anyone. So I guess I'd just like to know, what difference does it make when something bad happens in your family? But the other thing is that I guess I would just say, why can't the woman just tell the truth?
Well, I think, like you said, there is some sort of mental illness. And that's she's a pathological liar, and
Well,
that's all there is to it.
When she says, "What difference does it make?" I want to say the truth.
Well, that is a statement, right? Exactly. What difference does it make? Well, the truth, yeah. But I think that comes out of frustration of her not being able to come up with a good enough lie to cover up the truth. And as I've hit on repeatedly in the show, the truth is that it was a gun running operation out of Benghazi. They're never going to come out and say that.
Sure. Well, she has been asked repeatedly, and her associates have been asked repeatedly here in the last several months, what was your top accomplishment as Secretary of State? They're befuddled. They're bewildered. They cannot come up with an answer.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard some abstract things like she's changed the perception of our country abroad. Okay.
Yes, now they view us as totally incompetent, whereas before we were just kind of incompetent.
They view us as total morons, not half morons.
Yeah.
But there's no accomplishment. There's no meat in the sandwich. It's just all fluff. It's all abstract theories. And this is what she's going to use to run for president.
Well, she's a radical, lying Marxist who is held up as the pinnacle of feminist power when all she did was just ride her husband's coattails, her cheating husband's coattails, to power herself.
And who is a student of Saul Alinsky.
Mm-hmm.
And, her great claim to fame is defending the Black Panthers in the 1960s, Huey Lewis.
And, if she wasn't such a radical Marxist, and she does have Marxist ideals, this is not a debatable thing, but if she wasn't such a radical Marxist, I would actually feel bad for her. I mean, trapped in a loveless marriage, having no real accomplishments of her own, I would feel kind of bad for her.
Well, even Rosie O'Donnell, one of her staunch offenders, was just astounded that she stuck with Bill after Bill just rubbed her face in the mud over the Monica Lewinsky thing.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is she's well aware of that.
Yeah.
This was a marriage of convenience for political gain for the both of them. The love went out of the marriage long, long, long ago, if there ever was any, and it's been a marriage of convenience, a marriage of political expediency for the both of them from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and this whole "I don't have two nickels to rub together" statement, I mean, come on, who's going to believe that?
But the feminists, the feminists, why they didn't come out and just pulverize her for staying with that cad?
Because the feminists are riding her coattails.
Sure.
So they're all riding the coattails of Bill, which is hilarious. And then they decry someone who like Sarah Palin, who, I'm not a huge fan of Sarah Palin, but at least she's built herself up. She's done things kind of independently of her husband. She hasn't relied on his career to further her own career. She has to be torn down. It's all it's just a political football issue.
Well, if I've learned one thing about Bill Clinton, you're allowed to be a serial harasser, potentially a rapist,
mm-hmm.
as long as you support a woman's right to choose.
Right.
So the Hillary isn't going to give up on Bill, and the feminist organizations aren't going to give up on Hillary.
Again, it's the point that I was trying to make was that it's all just a political football issue to further the false left-right paradigm.
Okay, well, that's enough for the Clintons, and I guess we're going to get into, there was a contest, a mutual throwing under the bus this week.
Yeah, I kind of missed that, but apparently the Obamas were trying to throw Chuck Hagel under the bus, saying that the Bergdahl prisoner swap was his idea. And then the story that I get here is that Chuck Hagel testified in front of Congress saying, well, wait a second, That wasn't my idea. Obama signed off on that.
Well, Hagel did say, Hagel did specify for the record that he was completely in agreement with Obama, but he said he's the one that signed off on it, and it was his decision.
Right. He said, Mr. Chairman, I want to be clear on one fundamental point. I would never sign off on any decision that I did not feel was in the best interest of this country, nor would the President of the United States, who made the final decision with the full support of his national security team. So there you have it. He's saying he's not going to take the fall for this one.
Well, John Kerry's been thrown under the bus more times than he'd like to count.
Is that why his face is all flat?
Yes, and then he gets the Botox injections to puff it back up. But obviously, the truth is not in this administration. And you posted something on my timeline about 2 years worth of emails mysteriously vanishing from Lois Lerner.
Oh yeah, that just came up in the last few minutes before the show started. The IRS now claims to have lost over 2 years of Lois Lerner emails. Today, Ways and Means Committee Chairman Dave Camp issued the following statement regarding the Internal Revenue Service, informing the committee that they have lost Lois Lerner's emails from a period of January 2009 to April 2011 due to a supposed computer crash.
Well, this is the basis for all of Obama scandals. You stonewall as long as you possibly can to destroy the evidence. And it's pick your scandal: Fast and Furious, James Rosen, IRS scandal, VA scandal, Bo Bergdahl scandal. Pick your scandal. This is the time they use to destroy documents and get rid of the evidence. So that comes as no shock and no surprise.
Right. Well, every administration kind of does that, but it's just turned up to 11 under this.
Well, this has been Frankly Speaking, and I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my cohort, David Kaniuk, and we will be back shortly.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I'm administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotta be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
Bang, bang, lie down, you're dead.
And we're back with Frankly Speaking Live. I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my cohort, David Canute.
I'm going to just giggle like a little schoolgirl every time you say that.
This is his new title.
It's so funny that he's playing that song with the lyric, boom, boom, bang, bang, lay down your dead. In my hand right now, and again, this is an uncoordinated show here, but in my hand, I'm holding the story, Russian bombers fly within 50 miles of California coast. Apparently this week, two Air Force F-22 jets were scrambled to intercept two Tu-95 Bear H aircraft coming within 50 miles of the California coast. That's pretty darn close. That's pond skipping with a stone there.
Yeah.
That's pretty significant, though. We know the Russians have been flying those bombing training missions here. On Steve Quayle's site, he elaborated on that. I think Hawk actually posted this, saying the real truth behind the Russian bombers off the West Coast is that they're practicing for a full-scale nuclear first strike. The commentary was that those Tu-95 bombers that approached the California coast were accompanied by IL-78 Midas refueling tankers. So that info indicates those so-called interceptors did nothing to turn them around, but left them right away. And the bombers continued on to within 50 miles or less off the coast. And at jet speed, that means they turned at the last moment, or just as they would if they were to release a device before turning swiftly away to avoid the blast. So they did full practice run and gathered electronic warfare intel at the same time. And then there was an additional report that validated that statement, saying that to make this even scarier, the Bears have a range of 9,700 nautical miles, so no refueling is needed. If they launch from Kamchatka, my guys confirmed that they were detected 3,000 miles out. A brief intercept at 200 nautical miles, and finally the practice drop simulating Nuke-tipped supersonic cruise missiles, followed by a full-on turn and burn. This is a trial not just for the Bears, but the more lethal, stealthy supersonic Blackjacks. By the way, they could have launched 300 miles out if they wanted to. 50 miles is, quote, ballsy. So there's some very, very scary stuff. That kind of ties back into what we were first talking about the Russians living in America.
Well, what was that? What was the movie about Top Gun with Tom Cruise?
Tom Cruise, yeah, that was Top Gun.
Top Gun, and they was giving the Russian MiG the one finger salute.
Oh, yeah.
4G upside down. Well, it just goes to show my original point that we're sitting on a very fragile world, and it's a dangerous place. And Christ has got his angels commissioned at the four corners of the earth, holding back the winds of strife until until the job is done here. Then those angels will let loose.
Well, that time where he's going to lift that hand of protection is coming on this country. And those of you who think that you're just, the world burns, I'm just going to sit in my lazy boy and watch it.
And cook hot
watch
dogs.
the football and cook hot dogs.
And roast marshmallows.
Things are going to change in this country. And people have this attitude that, it can't happen here. It is going to happen here. And while we've got Russian bombers who are flying 50 miles off the coast. And by the way, I don't know if people saw the stories from a few weeks ago about how LAX went down and everything. That is in part because of Russians testing electronic countermeasures against our devices there. So they're going out and proving that they can take us down and launch a first strike, and they'll catch us with our pants down.
Well, we've got a couple of interesting stories that made news this week. Apparently, Maliki over in Iraq is begging for American intervention now, begging for American bombers to come in and hold back the wave of Al-Qaeda. And soon, I guess it's Sunnis. It's trying to take over Baghdad.
Yep, the jihadists that we are funding there, where they're tearing down the country there. And there's now a cry from the mainstream dinosaur prostitute media saying that this is not what I want. They're making the case that we ought to be going back in there. Even I think old White House spokesperson Glenn Beck. What is Let's see. Yeah, Iraqi Air Force is. Iraqi Air Force evacuating besieged American contractors. Contractors are under attack. Christians are being attacked in Iraq. There's a huge refugee crisis now. So we're further funding the burning down of the world. And it's very interesting that this group is calling themselves ISIS. It's not really typically the name of a jihadi group. That is more of an occultistic name.
Well, I don't know how you feel about whether we should have got involved in Iraq or not, but being that we spent so much blood and treasure on the place in actual money and actual lives, there should have been a status of forces agreement left in place to keep some Americans in there just as kind of not so much peacekeepers, but helping train these Iraqis to take care of themselves, because basically all the ones that we put in place, I guess, have just fled.
Well, I will tell you how I feel about it. It's absolutely clear that we were lied to about the weapons of mass destruction and everything to go into Iraq. There's no question about that. We have the Downing Street memos, which prove that the evidence was cherry-picked because the policy of invasion had been set, so we were cherry-picking evidence to make the case to go in there. We never found weapons of mass destruction. Even old George W. Bush gets in front of the White House Correspondents' Dinner and jokes about looking under rocks. Oh, no WMDs there. So it's obvious that we were lied to get into Iraq. The Bush administration has the death of 1 million Iraqis on their hands. I feel that they're war criminals and should be fully prosecuted, just like Barack Obama is a war criminal for what he's done in Libya and Syria and now Iraq. That's how I feel about it.
Well, but what I'm saying, for the sake of keeping the country from a full-blown civil war between the Shiites and the Sunnis, should we have left a peacekeeping force in place? Or do you think that Obama was right in pulling all our forces out?
Well, I think we should have pulled our forces out. I mean, it's easy to say, gosh, we should never have gone in there. Of course you can say that, but we did go in there. So what should have happened? I hate to think that we should have left forces in. It's really funny that Iran is actually offering to come in and help out.
Sure, they'll help.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I guess that I feel like, whether you agree or disagree, we were in it. And to keep a civil war from happening, I think a small 15,000 residual status of forces agreement or something should have been made, much like that we've had in a series of other conflicts, whether it was World War II in Germany.
Right. But how long do you keep them in?
Well,
50 years, 100 years?
We still got people in South Korea, and we still have people in... I mean,
what a mess. What an absolute mess.
Well, here's the problem. Part of the problem with communism and America is during the Cold War, we didn't want the spread of communism. So obviously we tried to neutralize certain places, certain countries in the world that weren't on the shores of America. So we had friendly allies around the world so that we could keep the war as far away from potentially our shores as possible. Now that may be a cold-hearted and callous thing to say, that we want to fight on somebody else's shores, but that's really the truth of the matter. And so when we was funding the Taliban to fight Russia in Afghanistan, we was fighting a proxy war against Russia by funding the Taliban. Now, you may say that was a terrible foreign policy. But the fact of the matter is that's what our country done. And, you have to stand, you make a bed, you got to lay in it.
Here's the Glenn Beck quote that I was looking at. He was on Sean Hannity's Fox show. This is from InfoWars. Glenn Beck fanned the flames of fear and paranoia by predicting on Sean Hannity's Fox show that Al-Qaeda will basically take over the world. He said, nature abhors a vacuum, and we have left a vacuum around the world. In other words, the idea that the U.S. shouldn't be the world's policeman is a tragic mistake. That's a direct attack against libertarians who, of course, advocate that we shouldn't be the world's policeman and going into all these countries where we're not needed to. That's a direct attack against the kind of the Ron Paul, Rand Paul wing there. Again, it's just further proof just on that Glenn Beck is a White House-sponsored Media Matters shill.
Let me ask you a question. Let me try to get this as simple as possible. Let's say you live on a house on a certain street, and you've got some gang-related violence going on your street. So you want to set the time and the place of any conflict that you have. You want to keep that off of your lawn, out of your house. So you try to take the fight somewhere else. You try to have friends on other streets. Do you see what I'm driving at?
I do see what you're driving at. The difference is that we are in this analogy, we're funding the gangs. So it's like, yeah, I want to use this excuse to keep them out there so I can take them to another street and set up an outpost in that other street. But I'm funding them to cause trouble so I can have that excuse to go to the other street.
Sure.
And that's what we've done with these groups.
That's a good analogy. We could use, say, for example, the Blood and the Crips. If the government somehow decided, we don't know what to do with these Blood and Crips. We don't necessarily want any of them to dominate, so we'll just fund both sides to fight each other to a stalemate, and then we'll deal with it sometime down the road, whatever. That seems to be the policy, the foreign policy that our nation has taken in many conflicts.
Right, and it hasn't really worked. So why not just stay out of it?
Well, I would ask you, what would you do instead?
I would stay out of it. If they want to kill each other across the world, then go ahead and do it.
But what happens if we don't have outposts and stations and we get the conflict right on our shores?
Then we go after them. If the conflict comes to our shores, then we roll them back.
Well, this is Frankly Speaking Live. I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and cohort David Kanyuk, and we will be back after our final break.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places. Especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart, and it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
And we're back with Frankly Speaking Live. I'm your host, Frank Olshauser, and my cohort in crime, David Canuck. Just one small observation before we get into our final topic, and we're going to again forego our hypocrites of the week because we don't really have any current ones, and we want to get.
Everybody's a hypocrite.
Yes,
this
they
week.
are. Really,
we covered
they are.
Hillary. That's pretty hypocritical.
And the Now Gang could be a great choice. That's the National Organization for Women. And what they had to say about
going on about Miss America or Miss USA, whatever.
and women taking taekwondo as protection.
Right. So basically, they yelled at her for saying women should take self-defense lessons because people shouldn't be raping you anyway.
Well,
it's like, you know what? We don't live in utopia, and bad people are there, and they do bad things.
You could take that for anything in society.
Yeah.
Why protect yourself with sunscreen when you walk out in the sun? Because it should be the sun's responsibility not to give you cancer.
Exactly.
Don't put on a seatbelt when you get in a car because it should be your car's responsibility and every other driver, it's your responsibility to keep you from being a wreck and being thrown out of your car.
Boom, hypocrite of the week.
Done. Yeah, hypocrite of the week, done. But one small thing I observed this week, I was watching a bit of Jimmy Fallon, and I just caught it channel surfing. And the only reason I stopped and watched is because one of my favorite movie stars, Clint Eastwood, was on.
Oh, yeah.
And being a fan, being the age I am, I'm an obvious fan of the Dirty Harry flicks. Mm-hmm. But the observation that I had was Clint Eastwood on this show looked like a little kid.
Yeah.
Now, Clint's a pretty big guy. He's probably in excess of 6'2" to 6'3". I doubt if he's 6'4", but I think he's in the range of 6'2" to 6'3".
Did the aging shrink him a little bit?
I don't know, but he looked like this little person, and here's Fallon sitting up here, and here's little Clint Eastwood sitting down here, and the perception of that just threw me for a loop. That I don't know if that was something meant to be on purpose, that Fallon was trying to take a superior, putting Clint Eastwood in a submissive type posture or whatever. But
I don't know.
Clint just looked like he was sitting there like in this little, with his hands together and legs together, and don't get out of that spot, and I'm going to hover over you. And I guess you'd have to see it.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and watch some.
Maybe if you can Google something on it. But it was, the optics of it was really weird. But
I'll have to take a look at that for future guests there and see if that's the.
But our final thing before we run out of time is I wanted to get into this immigration of the children.
Yes.
That is landing in Tucson and I suppose Phoenix, getting across the border. And why and how is this happening? What's going on that, children anywhere from the ages of 3 and 4 up to 17 is getting into our country, not being monitored by any kind of parental supervision. What's going on with this?
Well, this is an end run around immigration reform, basically. So they're creating this crisis, so they have an excuse to say, we have all these kids in here. We've got to pass we got to grant amnesty because we have all these kids here. Steve Deace laid it out on Freedom Outpost this week. He said the American people have been inundated with stories the past few days of a tragic humanitarian crisis. At least 100,000 kids from Latin America have illegally flooded across the border. Of course, the Obama regime is claiming this is a result of our lack of immigration reform, and they're pretending to be surprised by the whole thing. But they're not surprised. Quite the opposite is true. This is all going as planned. The timing of this humanitarian crisis can be linked directly to the Obama regime's unilateral, see that as illegal, decision to continue its unilateral, see that as illegal, variation of the so-called DREAM Act, aka Amnesty for Children. Last month, the Obama regime decided to continue breaking the law, and one immigration official said in a memo the result will be an even greater increase in the rate of recidivism and first-time illicit entries. This is the so-called Cloward and Piven strategy at work, folks. Named after the two leftists who authored it, the strategy here is simple. Flood the welfare state with needy people until it reaches its breaking point, and the people have no choice but to accept Marxism as a substitute. That's exactly what you're seeing the Obama regime doing on the issue of illegal immigration.
Well, let me ask you this. Because I'm kind of, I don't want to say neutral on the subject, but I'm just so astounded by it that I just don't know how to take it quite yet. But they're not Mexican refugees or Mexican immigrants, illegal immigrants. It's Latin and Central America.
We are going down and facilitating their transport up through the border. Yeah, you're telling me 100,000 kids suddenly decide on their own in all these Latin America countries at the same time, hey, I'm going to leave you, mother. I'm sorry. Goodbye.
Well,
adios. And then they come up here all at the same time? That's horse manure.
What I heard somebody say on Ed Fallon's program was one time, a caller, I believe it was, that these coyotes, that it's going to cost these people, an arm and a leg. Most of the money they spend is just to get them up to the Mexican border. And then getting across the border is not too big a deal, but most of the money is going to be spent getting them from Central and Latin America up to the border.
We are, and they're probably not even spending the money to do that. We are facilitating their transport up here. This is an end run around immigration reform. This is to create an emotional appeal to the American public saying, well, God, we can't throw kids out.
Well,
we got to do something.
Well, let me ask you this, though. Would you consider these people, because of the fact some of the excuse that I've heard is that these people are fleeing, the parents of these children are basically putting their kids, much like Moses, into the river in a basket, Miriam, the mother, putting Moses in a basket to be rescued by the Pharaoh to protect her child. They're saying, hang on a minute, they're saying that the drug lord, that the parents are sending these kids up here to flee the drug lords and the drug violence for their children's safety. So are these kids in any way, would you consider them refugees?
No, not at all. Not at all. This is something that the U.S. government is facilitating so they can create an emotional appeal. Obama tried to do that earlier this week, calling these kids dream kids. Let's see. He's saying that our future rests on the success of dream kids. He says that they're worried about whether or not they're going to be able to finance their college education of their immigrant status. They're worried about whether, in fact, this country that they love so deeply loves them back and understands that our future rests on their success. That's an emotional appeal. Biden, the vice idiot-in-chief, said, well, we need them from a purely economic point of view. And the thing is, how are we going to pay for all of this?
Well, we have a broken down welfare system. And how much more can you put on the back of this broken down welfare system?
Well, they're also going to, the next step will be, okay, well, we have all these kids here. Now we got to get the parents up here. We have to reunite them.
Well, sure.
Jed Johnson said, he was talking about immigration law. He says that the law requires that we act in the best interest of the child. When we turn over a child to HHS acts in the best interest of the child, which very often means reuniting that child with the parent in the United States. Well, what about the law that says that we turn these illegals back
quickly
and deport them?
in the time we have left? Would you militarize our border?
I don't know if I would militarize our border, but I would start impeachment proceedings against Obama, and I would have the entire Justice Department arrested.
Well, we've got to get in control of this.
This is treason here.
We've got to get in control of this border, or our country's going to be overcome.
If I were a patriot or militia member in Arizona, I would be on the lookout for these buses, and I would be roadblocking the streets and turning them back. That's what I would be doing.
Okay, well, this has been Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my new cohort, David Kaniuk. And we will be here next week, same time, same channel. So be sure and tell your friends or your enemies